Good morning, everybody. Bruce Chabone here with your Wednesday morning wake-up call. So glad you could join me this morning. Sure hope it's a good one so far. You know, the faith journey is not an easy one. We pray, we worship, we counsel with others, we seek advice, we talk to our spouse. But sometimes, what we just really want is to hear from God. And that's a really difficult thing because we don't always hear from God. Sometimes we'll go periods of time where we never hear what he has to say. Some people have never heard from God. It doesn't mean that they aren't believers or don't believe in God. It's just, that God hasn't spoken to them. But this faith journey is difficult. And I want to challenge you this week to continue on in that faith journey. I know for me it's difficult because when I'm waiting to hear from God, I've got to wait. And when I wait, I begin to doubt. And when we doubt, we begin to question. And questioning one's faith isn't necessarily a bad thing in and of itself if we're not, as long as we're not questioning those things that we know to be true. And when we begin to question those things that we know to be true, then we can begin to get into anxious situation, become anxious ridden, stressed out, worrisome. We can get depressed. And that's not what God wants. God wants us to believe, but God wants us also to wait for him. He wants us to be on this faith journey knowing without a doubt that he's going to deliver for us. Hebrews 11 tells us that faith is confidence in what we hope for and assurance in what we cannot see. And in fact, in Hebrews chapter 12, we have this listing of all these people who have been on the faith journey and gone through the exact same things that we go through in doubting and not waiting and trying to get ahead of God. And it winds up becoming, just even more complicated. And one of the characters in this Hall of Fame of faith is Gideon. And Gideon was a judge of the Israelites back in the Old Testament. And he was a young man, and God comes to him, and they have this one-on-one conversation. And God says, Gideon, I'm going to use you to deliver Israel from the Midianites and take you out of your oppression. And Gideon says, cool, God, that's great. But here's what I want you to do. If it's really you, I want you to take this piece of fleece, and in the morning, I want you to make it wet with the ground all dry around it. And God does it. And Gideon says, man, that's really cool, God, but this is what I want you to do next. If it's really you, for me to really believe, and don't get mad at me, but I want you this time to make it dry with the ground all wet around it. And God does that. And Gideon goes on and he believes God and he defeats this army of Midianites, and the Israelites live happy for a few years, and we know how the Old Testament goes. I use that story to let you know that there are people who have difficulties in their faith journey and they question God, but God will deliver. God believes in you. He loves you. He wants what's best for you, and he's going to deliver you out of the different situations that we get in. These characters, this Hall of Fame and faith, were just like you and just like me, where they said, God, if you'll just blah, 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 fill in the blanks, then I know it'll be you. And I know everything will be all right. But he wants us to live by faith, by not being able to see, but knowing that he's going to deliver. So that's the challenge I give you this week. To believe that God is going to deliver for you. And it may not happen the way you want it, and I guarantee you it's not going to happen in the timing that you want it. But God will deliver, and it'll be on his time, and it'll be the perfect time. Because he loves you, and I love you. Have a great week. God bless, and we'll see you in a couple weeks.